The best journeys take you home. The smooth, wooden keel of a large merchant ship cuts through the frigid waters of the North Sea. Low clouds drown out the starlight, and the ocean is calm as far as the eye can see. On deck, besides the soft rustle of linen sails and the gentle creak of the gaff as it adjusts to the light wind, all is quiet. The crew rests in their quarters below, in preparation for unloading their haul later that evening. Two well-worn sailors stand in the lantern light of the quarter-deck, looking out into the dark abyss ahead. One rests his elbow on the helm. The other leans against the banister of the steps that lead to the main deck. He downs the last drops from an amber bottle of ale. Without warning, the ship jolts to a halt. "What the hell?" The sailor against the banister bounds down the steps to lean over the starboard side. He ponders into the blackness below. "Did we hit a reef?" The puzzled sailor is wrenched over the side. A loud splash follows. A blood-curdling cry pierces the night air while the massive shipping vessel groans, slowly lurching to the side. Below deck, shouting ensues as sleeping sailors are dumped from their hammocks. One dazed sailor sits on the floor, watching his shipmates jump to their feet and charge up the steps to the main deck. In the stores below the crew's quarters, a hooded figure slouches against several wooden barrels. As the ship rocks, a sizable, empty ale bottle rolls across the floorboards. From the main deck above, the ship's bell rings violently. Piercing blue eyes appear from beneath the black wool cloak. Aidan Shaw stumbles to his feet as he realizes the floor itself is rolling out from under him. He pulls the hood from his head, revealing his slicked-back raven locks, oily from weeks at sea, and a chiseled, unshaven face worn by the wind and the sun. He looks up to the cries reverberating above his head. Rolling his eyes, he complains in a deep, gravelly voice resembling thunder rolling across the open skies. "That was me sleeping good, too, for once." A whinny resounds beside him. A brown Clydesdale mare, partially covered by a wool blanket, adjusts her stance to maintain the balance of her enormous weight on the shifting floor. Aidan glances her way and replies, "Oh, you wish it, Gara. We're not even meant to be here. I'll have a look." He rips the wool cloak from his shoulders and tosses it over one of the wooden barrels. While his tall, muscular figure is laden with leather armor, it does little to hide the scars on his neck and hands that peer out from beneath his ivory blouse. He jogs up the lurching stairs in front of him. He stumbles and catches himself on the railing, his head suddenly swimming. "Oh, I shouldn't have drank the whole bottle." Regaining his footing, he takes exaggerated steps to save his balance on the remaining stairs. As he reaches the main deck, he analyzes the situation. Before him is the strangest storm he has ever witnessed. There is little wind, but massive waves bash both sides of the ship. A colossal swell rises above the deck. Bluish humanoid creatures ride inside of it, their legs fading into the black water. Aidan locks eyes with one of the blue men, and time seems to slow. He stares into its bright yellow orbs for what seems like an eternity. Then the flow of time resumes, and the surf splashes onto the deck. As the wave recedes back into the sea, the creature drags a kicking, screaming sailor over the side with it. These blue men, these protective beings of the ocean, are familiar to Aidan, though he's never seen them outside of Mink before. These boys have no idea what they're in for. 3 sailors hoist the halyard lines in unison, desperate to release the jib sails and get the ship moving. The middle of the 3 commands, "Come on, lads, let's pull! Come on!" 4 additional sailors hang across the gaff of the foremast, unwrapping the sails. While untangling a line, a sailor above notices another enormous surge rising from the deep. "Watch out!" he shouts to those on deck below. The wave crashes onto the deck. When it recedes, the sailors on the gaff look on in terror as all 3 halyard lines are left hanging. There is no one attached to them. The ship begins to roll to the opposite side. Struggling to keep himself upright, Aiden grasps onto the doorframe he came through. One by one, deafening blasts ring through the air. He looks up as the cannons begin to break loose and roll to the other side of the ship. A young deckhand, no more than 13 or 14 years old, grabs hold of a cannon and attempts to push it back into place. The ship jerks, pinning the boy against the side of the vessel. "Help!" Stowaway or not, Aiden has no choice but to get involved now. He steadies himself and takes off at a sprint across the deck, grabbing hold of the cannon. Together, he and the boy haul it off of him. Aiden leans his leg into the gun and ties it back off to the ship. Through the sea spray, he yells to the deckhand, "Go on, greenhorn, I've got it." The terrified boy nods and runs off to help secure another cannon. As another swell rises into the air, sailors grab axes and spears from compartments around the deck and charge at the blue men. One of the creatures seizes Aiden by the foot and drags him across the deck. He hastily grasps the small knife tucked inside his leather boot, and stabs the blue man in the hand. The creature emits a metallic scream before releasing Aiden's foot and sliding back into the water. Aiden springs to his feet as another blue man sails at him through the air. A spear spirals over his shoulder, piercing the creature in the chest. The blue man falls to the deck, watery green ooze seeping from the fatal wound. Aiden looks back to see the young deckhand. Aiden smirks. Thanks, laddie." A dinghy is thrown overhead by another wave. Aiden and the deckhand duck and throw their hands over their heads as a small rowboat breaks into hundreds of pieces that scatter across the deck. One chunk thwacks the helmsman on the head, and he falls to the ground. The ship rolls more violently. Aiden crawls to the helmsman to find him knocked out cold. Seizing the helm, he steadies the ship, but the resistance on the rudder is overwhelming. He's unsure how much longer he can sustain it. He looks up and realizes the foresails are still not down. "What's going on up there?" he calls up to the gaff. A voice yells back down, "The mast still went out clear." Aiden looks over to the young deckhand, who's in the process of stabbing another blue man. "Hey, greenhorn, take the helm." The boy nods and stumbles over to Aiden. He braces his stance and fights to keep the ship on course. Aiden sprints to the shroud of the foremast, shoves his blade between his teeth, and climbs the rungs. A blue man comes at him from below. Aiden kicks it in the face and it falls, landing on the deck like a reeled-in fish. 3 more sail at him within a swell to his left. He doesn't have time for this. He takes a deep breath, stares at them intently, and faces his outstretched palm toward them. The air in front of his hand begins to fold and morph, and the blue men are blasted backward. He exhales and keeps climbing. At the top of the shroud, he finds a solitary sailor still manning the gaff. The sailor is desperately clinging to the line and kicking at blue men to keep them off him. Aiden has to think quick. He grabs hold of the line and saws at it with his blade. As he works, he looks to the sailor and asks, "Where's the captain, son?" The sailor replies, "Pulled overboard, sir." Aiden rolls his eyes and shakes his head. Of course he was. The line breaks and the sail finally flies out. The ship lists port side. Aiden grabs the frayed line, reaches for the sailor's hand, and they ride it back down to the deck. As the waves continue to rise, the sailors wearily endure the battle with the blue men. Aiden takes the helm from the exhausted deckhand and spins its starboard side into the wind. The ship slowly creeps forward. He then jerks the helm port side, and the ship sluggishly slides sideways. He calls out to the rest of the deck, "Trim the sails!" A few of the sailors return, "Trim the sails, aye!" They cease fighting the blue men and charge toward the rigging. They hoist the lines to control the wind in the sails. The ship rocks as Aiden spins the helm starboard side into the wind. The waves get even higher, and the sailors hold on to anything they can to keep from going overboard. Under his breath, Aiden utters a prayer. With one final pull, he slams the helm port side, and the ship swings around once more. He can feel an enormous force releasing hold of the ship, and the waves instantly subside. The vessel glides on through calm waters once more. He takes a deep breath and attempts to shake the adrenaline from his twitching muscles. From beside him, the young deckhand questions, "Who are you, sir?" Promptly, Aidan turns to the boy and extends his hand. "Aidan Shaw, lad." The deckhand's mouth falls open. He drops his limp hand into Aidan's palm. "Admiral Aidan Shaw." Aidan shakes the boy's wilted hand, another smirk dallying at the corners of his mouth. "Well, I'm no Scotland's admiral anymore, but unfortunately, it appears I will have to remain your captain till we make port." The deckhand removes the wool beanie from his head to reveal matted black tresses. He holds the sodden hat to his chest and bows. "Pleasure to make your acquaintance, Mr. Shaw." Aidan's simper cracks into a hearty smile. "What's your name, laddie?" "Edward Thatch, sir." Aidan nods. "A pleasure to make your acquaintance and all, Mr. Thatch. And to be sailing alongside ye thus far." As the sky overhead clears, a flicker appears in Aidan's periphery. He leaves Edward in charge of the helm as he walks over to the side of the ship. He steps up onto a rung of the shroud and looks out at the ocean ahead of them. In the distance, the beacon fires of Leith Shrine, Scotland. Beyond the port, he can just make out the outline of the castle on the hill. He takes a deep, uneasy breath. He's almost home.